Welcome to Home Business TV. Welcome to the Home Business Podcast. Can you turn your ordinary ideas, products, and sales pitches into blockbusters of persuasion by using brain science? Today's podcast guest, James Ibond, says yes. He's the author of Brain Glue, How Selling Becomes Much Easier by Making Your Ideas Sticky. James Ibond, how you doing today?
Richard, I'm so glad to be here today. I mean, I love your podcast, and it's easy to understand why so many people are hooked on you. And by the way, we want to get richer, so we listen to Richard.
Oh man, you stole. I was gonna throw that one out. We're already throwing some brain persuasion. I love that. We want to get richer by listening to Richard. That is great. All right, I've got to get out of the way. So I got to say James Bond. I got to make a joke about that. I mean, what's that? The 500th time you've heard that? Sorry, but we'll keep
this hour.
We'll keep it James Ibond. So where are you calling in from?
Southern California. I'm originally from Montreal, where it's a lot colder. So now it's a nice, bright, sunny, warm day in Southern California.
Outstanding. Besides being an author, James Ibond is a leading behavioral management specialist, TEDx speaker, SCORE counselor, and has appeared on many major news outlets. Brain Glue was a finalist in Publishers Weekly Business Book of the Year. James, tell us a little more about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm originally from Montreal, and I worked my way up and started an advertising agency, and eventually had major clients. And I learned something. And so I want to say what I learned, and then I'll explain how it came about, okay? So having a great idea is not enough. You have to be able to sell it. Having a great product is not enough. You have to be able to sell it. And I uncovered something that's blowing people's minds and changing the way they're selling their ideas and products. And it's using brain glue. I didn't invent brain glue. I discovered brain glue. I invented the term brain glue. But people are realizing that it's been around for a long time. In fact, Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul and 60 other bestseller books, but Chicken Soup for the Soul sold 500 million books. You know, do the math on that. What's 500 million times 10 is like 5 billion. So he sold billions of dollars worth of books. And he fell in love with brain glue, and he's forcing everybody in his company to read it and to apply it. He's, actually testing them and saying, how does brain glue apply to this and that? Because it's so powerful. And so I started as in advertising in Montreal, and I worked my way up. I won major clients like Kraft Foods, Timex Watches, Avon Cosmetics, Seagram's, their world headquarters is there. And I had the opportunity to win an anti-drug campaign in America. And people thought I would be really good. And I came up with logical reasons why you should not do drugs. And I lost. And what did I lose to? A guy holding an egg saying, "This is your brain," and cracking the shell and dropping the egg into a sizzling frying pan. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? When I saw the ad, two things happened. The first one was I thought I was going to die. This was infinitely more powerful than my ad. Mine was logical. Second is this was emotional selling, not logical selling. Infinitely more powerful than logic. And I didn't know how to do emotional selling. How can I be in advertising, in marketing, in business, and not know emotional selling? So I freaked out. I realized they don't teach emotional selling in school. And so what I did was, I love 3x5 cards. So I wrote on a 3x5 card, "Your brain on drugs." So I'd remember the ad. And right next to my desk, I created a box, and I called it the passion box. And every time I saw an ad or heard something that was passionate, that was emotional, not logical selling, but emotional selling, including quotes, famous quotes, I would put it inside the box in the hopes that eventually I'd be able to understand how emotional selling is created. In fact, my wife we'd go to doctor's offices, and she hated going to a doctor's office with me because, you get magazines that you don't normally have at home. I'm looking through like a Vogue magazine. I go, "Oh," and she goes, "Do not tear it out of the magazine." I said, no, look at how fantastic this ad is. And she sits far away. I do not know that guy, But after about 10 years, we moved to Southern California, and I met John Gray. And John Gray is an author who wrote a book called Men, Women, and Relationships. And he was telling me how frustrated he was because people who read the book said this is profound. It's one of the best, if not the best, relationship book I've ever read, ever, and it's changing my life. And yet few people were buying the book. So one day he got this crazy idea. What if I change the title to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and tweak the content a little so he referred to it throughout the book? Guess what happened? And he's telling me
Sales
500,000 books.
exploded.
It's 500,000 guys, and 1,000,000. You know how many books he sold? 50 million Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus books.
All just by changing to the Mars and Venus analogy.
Yeah, and analogy is the key. Okay. So when I got home, I was going to put his book inside my passion box, but I stopped and I said, wait a second. It's an analogy. Men are not really from a different planet, although I think a lot of women out there think we are, and for good reason, but that's a whole other story. But so I realized that's a metaphor or analogy. Is that the secret to emotional selling? And then I realized this is your brain on drugs. That was not a brain, it was an egg. But they're probably sitting around the table thinking, okay, when you take drugs, what happens? It fries your brain. What else gets fried? An egg. Why don't we have a frying egg in a sizzling frying pan and then come up with that? So I figured, have I figured out the secret to emotional selling that it's metaphors or metaphors? So what I did was I took the passion box and I dumped it on my bed, and I quickly discovered that metaphors is one of 14 brain triggers at the heart of emotional selling. I thought my brain was going to explode. Have I just figured out something that nobody's figured out?
So these 14 triggers are kind of where decisions are made.
Yeah. What happens is there are certain things that trigger parts of the brain. What we don't realize when we're talking to somebody is they're listening to us, but their brain is doing other things. They're thinking, hey, it's raining outside. Did I forget to close the windows of my car? Did I have a fight with my wife or my daughter or whatever? Did we just win a client and I got to figure out how to service them? Or did I just lose a client? Or whatever it is, okay? Or I have pain in my stomach. But go ahead, tell me what you want to tell me. Do you think they're going to buy something from you or say yes if they're just not in a good mood? But there are brain triggers, and when you trigger something in the brain, when you activate one of the triggers in the brain, it actually makes the brain much more. It wakes the brain up. And let me give you an example. So I have a TV next to my computer, and I don't normally have it on, but I had it on for whatever reason while I'm doing work on a computer. And they had Johnny Bench, the past baseball player in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And he's saying it's a Blue Emu ad. Blue Emu is like anti-arthritis cream. You put it on your joints and stuff, and it makes you feel better. Right. I'm not listening to the ad. And he goes, Blue Emu, it works fast and you won't stink. What did he just say? And you won't stink? Stink is a trigger word. And
so it grabbed your attention. It was sort of there in your subconscious, and then that catchy slogan grabbed hold of you.
Absolutely. And I start to realize, there are trigger words. Like you had somebody on who's was talking about Quick and Dirty Tips Network. Dirty, okay, Quick and Dirty Tips Network that she was on.
I think the word dirty might have woken everybody up.
Exactly. But if you said the Quick Tips Network, that doesn't work as fast as the Quick and Dirty Tips Network. And so, when you have how about a billionaire who came up, a kid who dropped out of school, borrowed some money from his dad, started a business, and became a billionaire with the help of one word. Okay? So what does Richard Branson, Madonna, and olive oil have in common?
I want to know.
Virgin. Yeah, really. Virgin olive oil.
Oh.
Like a virgin. Okay? And he came up with virgin. Initially, he started a magazine. Richard Branson started a magazine for musicians. And then they decided he wanted to start a record company. And so he decided, they were thinking about it. We need a name that's really going to grab people's attention. Why don't we call it Virgin? We're kind of virgins because we're just starting out. We'll call it Virgin Records. He started winning people like the Rolling Stones and all these other people. Eventually, he has somebody in Texas is telling me, oh, there's Virgin hotels all over Texas. His Virgin hotels. He's got Virgin, ocean liners. And of course, he has Virgin Virgin Airlines, and Virgin Galactic. But he recognizes that
Yeah,
there's
I didn't realize until you said that. Now, there's a common thing of virgin through all of his properties.
yeah, exactly. And he trademarked them because he recognized that Virgin is powerful. And even before he had hotels, he started coming up with all these names and then getting them trademarked because he recognized.
Do you have any other examples of people who have used sort of specific words that grab emotions?
Yes, and it isn't just it's triggering the emotional centers of the brain. There's something called Hebb's law, which says the neurons that fire together wire together. So what happens is if you could say something and it triggers an analogy or a metaphor, it actually triggers different parts of the brain. So let me give you an example of a mom and son. There's a mom and son in Utah who love Shark Tank. They're watching Shark Tank, and then she says to him, it would be cool if we could create a product and then maybe get on Shark Tank. And they're thinking about it. It took about a month, because usually if you get an idea, you want to start a business, you don't start it like right now. Hey, let's start this. We'll sell
Yeah,
paper.
you got to let it kind of churn in your background and
Yeah, exactly. And
study
you have
it.
to have something good. You have to have a good product. So she was constipated. She had a constipation problem. And the doctor
Okay.
told, okay, I don't want to get too much into that, but the doctor told her, if you raise your feet when you're on the toilet 6 to 8 inches off the ground, it actually changes the shape of your body and makes it easier to go to the bathroom. Okay.
All
So they're
right.
thinking about it. And she goes, why don't we create a toilet stool like that and maybe sell it to people? And we'll explain to them that when you raise your feet off the ground, it's easier for you when you go to the bathroom. Oh, wow, what a great idea. So they found a manufacturer, and the manufacturer is going to manufacture the products for us. And they made it so that it would like fit around the toilet. So if anybody's on the toilet, they don't have to step on the thing, but you can slide it out and put your feet on it. And so they're thinking, we need a good name for it. What's a good name for it? So they're thinking, okay, toilet stool. Well, I
No.
don't really like that name. My wife said they should have called it the stool, but I don't think that would have worked. So let me start there, okay?
Oh, wait, I like the stool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really. Might have gotten to work, but she's thinking, okay, toilet stool. Well, what's another way to describe a toilet? Potty. Oh, and you're sitting and you've got you're squatting. It's a squatty potty. Why don't we call it Squatty Potty? Squatty Potty sales exploded. These are two people who had no business experience and went from zero to $100 million of sales. The sales exploded. They couldn't believe how many people were buying the products. And eventually they got on Shark Tank and practically all the sharks wanted to invest. Why? They were making money, first of all, but second of all, it triggered their brains. Squatty Potty. Well, that sounds really cool. And so when you understand how these triggers work, you suddenly realize I got to apply it to my products or my, or whatever I'm selling. I had these three guys who were in construction business. And when I first figured out how brain glue works, it's one of the things about being a consultant is you could practice on your clients. And so I practiced on them. So after 10 years, these guys had $2 million in sales. Not bad, right? Ha! In 1 year, I took them to 10 million in sales. They reached 32 million 2 years later by coming up with a brain glue tool. It was really amazing. And it was,
Remember what that slogan was or what they
I do. So, because one of the things, making people laugh is one way to do it. You don't only have to do that. Okay. You can do other things too.
right.
But so I got a whiteboard out. I love whiteboards. And I said, let's make a list of over the past 10 years of all the different types of clients you've had. Okay. Okay. Great. I said, now let's play a game. Let's pretend you're going to pick one and you're not going to market to anybody except one. Who would it be? And they said, well, we don't want to say no to people. We build houses and stuff like that. I said, I got it. But let's pick one. If you were going to pick just one, which would it be? And they said, well, for 2 houses, we did fire restoration for insurance companies. I didn't know what that is, but they said, yeah, it's whenever an insurance company's client has a fire, they call us in. And we check. If the frame is damaged, you got to tear down the whole building. But if it's not
Right.
damaged, then you can put it up and fix it and all that stuff. And we can specialize in that. So I went with them to the first prospect, okay? And well, actually, this is what I said to them first. So he came up with the hook, okay? And I said, so fire restoration for insurance companies. So if you're going to sell to insurance companies, what's the first word that comes to their mind when their client has a fire? And they didn't know how to, they went, I don't know. So come on, think about it. What's the first word that comes to mind when their client has a fire? It really took a while. One of them says, fire? Yeah, fire. What are words or phrases that work with fire? Fire extinguisher. Why don't we call you guys the fire extinguisher for insurance companies? Whenever you have a client that has a fire, call us. We're your fire extinguisher. And let's get the website, firex.com. We went into the first prospect, and then there were two, and sometimes people get embarrassed about saying it. But I said, hey, look, think of us. We're the fire extinguisher for you guys, okay? He said, you're a fire extinguisher? I said, yeah. So you got one on the wall there. We're your fire extinguisher. Every time you have a client that has a fire, call us and we'll extinguish your fire. As we're getting back to the office, the phone was ringing. They had a receptionist answered the phone and said, yeah, the guy you just saw called. He's got a client for you right now. Their sales exploded like crazy, all because of this wacky thing. So
just by giving a word or a phrase that they can now like what happens there? Does it keep it more in people's memory?
Yes.
Does it trigger something? You talked about the neurons, they group together and fire uniquely in certain things. I'm kind of like trying to tie this a little bit more to how that will then trigger into people doing these making a buying decision like that.
Well, so as we describe a product that we have that we're selling, we're a home-based business. One of the things you want to do is you want to make as much money as possible without having to, go out there and, work your butt off, basically. I mean, still want to work hard. You have to have a good product. But if you have a good product, how many people have fantastic products and they struggle? And yet you have people that come up with, I'll give you some of the examples, okay? So let's say you came up with a glue that's really a cool glue, okay? What would you call it? So something glue, okay? So a metaphor is something you could use. So it's like an elephant, it's strong as an elephant, okay? Elephant glue, okay? So that's one way to do it. But another term is alliteration, repetition of sounds. Yeah, that's right, you got it. A repetition of sounds, okay? Which is, I started realizing Coca-Cola, Best Buy, PayPal, TikTok, Lululemon. I mean, you think it's a coincidence that they use alliteration or repetition of sound? Biden's Build Back Better, okay? I mean, you think they just, let's do that. No, they do it because they understand the power of alliteration. So, glue, Gorilla Glue, Gorilla Glue dominates the glue industry. I have two friends who are in the construction business, and they said JB Weld is much stronger than Gorilla and much better than Gorilla Glue. It might be, but if you go to like a Home Depot or wherever
Gorilla
you go
Glue.
to, Gorilla Glue's got a whole category here with like 40 different types of glues, and JB Weld has like 2 glues showing on the.
Is there something where it gets implanted in your, like implant, not a good term, but it kind of gets implanted in your brain, maybe even subconsciously, and then that fires off when you have to make the purchase decision?
Yes.
Could that kind of be a play here too?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, so Procter and Gamble came up with Head and Shoulders. Why did they choose Head and Shoulders? Because it's already in the brain. Head and shoulders, knees and toes, eyes, ears, mouth and nose.
Right.
I even remember it. If I said Jack and Jill went up the hill, who isn't gonna know that? When was the last time you heard that? For me, it was like 50, maybe 60 years ago. I'm old. Yeah, I could be on my deathbed and someone would say, hey, Jack and Joe went up that. I go, hills of a pill of what? I mean, we remember it. Rhyme works. Even in courtrooms, it works, okay? If the glove doesn't fit, you have to acquit, okay? If I was the opposing attorney, I would have said, he's an actor. So remember, you have to love how he faked the glove. Rhyme, because rhyme sticks with the brain. I'm not pro or anti.
I want to hit this one point. You're talking about how the slogan you use, kind of the word, you used a term for it, but the words kind of flow in a certain way, like Gorilla Glue went up the hill. So you have to kind of look at how the words you put together in a slogan, how they flow together.
Yes. So Jack Canfield wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, but he was telling me it took a month for him to come up with the title and a little longer, because the title of his book was he had 101 motivational stories that would change your life. But he said, if I call it that, 101 motivational stories that will change your life, it's just a logical thing, and it doesn't help people understand how powerful this is. It's emotional because we're taught to sell with logic when in
Right.
fact we buy for emotional reasons. In fact, in marketing, they always say you want them to know, like, and trust you. Why? Because if you don't like the guy, you're not going to buy from him probably, okay? Unless you're desperate and you need what they have. And so, but that's part of it. So you want to trigger the emotion centers of the brain. So he's sleeping and he woke up one day and he was thinking, chicken soup makes you feel better when you don't feel that well. My book makes you feel better when you don't feel that well. Why don't I call it chicken soup for the spirit? It doesn't really work yet, but it's close because he says now he understands how he came up with this. Okay. This was like, he said, he had a weekend of sleepless nights, and then he said SOUP, chicken soup for the soul. That sounds better. It works better with the brain. There's something about how the brain's patterns work that when you understand the brain's patterns, and you use them, it activates the brain and makes you much more receptive to buying a product. And let me give you a perfect example. How would you like to come up with a fabulous idea? Somebody you hate steals it from you, they make a fortune, and you struggle and starve to death. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
Of course not.
No.
Okay. So the head of Post Cereals is competing with Kellogg's. And they decided, why don't we come up with something other than a cereal, a snack? Why don't we come up with a little cake? And you put, jam inside it. So it's strawberry, blueberry, raspberry. And you can put it in the toaster. And when it comes out of the toaster, you have a nice warm cake. And why don't we call it Country Squares? That's kind of a cool name.
No.
They bragged. I know.
I already know what it is. That's why. That's how well these
wait.
principles work.
So yeah. So 3 months before he launched the product, the head of Post, he bragged to the media, and they showed the media, we're coming up with this Country Squares, and here's how it's done. So the head of Kellogg saw it and went, oh, what an incredible product. He's launching it in 3 months. Guys, everybody, I need you to figure out how we're going to make a product just like that, okay? But we're going to come up with a better name. So what's the name we're going to come up with? So one of the brain glue tools is sense elevation, okay? Like plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is for us who are old enough to remember Alka-Seltzer. Or smells like Teen Spirit, okay, from Kurt Cobain, right? Smells like Teen Spirit. Ooh, what does that smell like? Okay, just the words. So he goes, so it's going to pop out of the toaster. So we have to have the word pop, okay? And back then, Andy Warhol was really famous, and Andy Warhol was a pop artist. So pop art is in people's brains. It's already plugged into people's brains. Pop art. Why don't we call it Pop-Tarts? Pop-Tarts he launched it, of course, 1 week before Country Squares launched because he knew when they were launching, they bragged about it. The sales exploded so much, it became the biggest selling product that Kellogg's ever had. And they ran out of product. They ran advertisements apologizing. They said, hold on just for a few days. We're so sorry we ran out of product, blah, blah, blah. Nobody bought Country Squares. He ended up selling, I was just reading, last year they sold 3 billion Pop-Tarts, okay? And
can I pull a nugget out of there? Because I'm new to this. I'm trying to figure
Country Squares.
some of the things. One of the things is there like a the value of using an action word like Pop-Tart, looking for something that is an action verb
Yes.
type thing to help with creating a brain glue slogan like this?
Yes. Now you don't have to. And there are 14 brain triggers that I uncovered, and many use multiple of them, but often they'll just use one and it'll be successful. Okay. But there's, famous Amos. He had almost no money and he created a multi-million-dollar business. Okay. Hula hoops, Chips Ahoy, Rocky Road ice cream. Rocky Road ice cream uses 3 brain glue tools. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is they started, it was Dreyer's ice cream, and they started in the time of the Great Depression. Okay. It's not the best time to start. People are unemployed. Like half the people are unemployed in the country, but they started Rocky. And so the first thing they were looking for is they picked the name Rocky Road. They actually stole it from somebody else, but that's a whole other story. But or borrowed it from someone else. But Rocky Road, it's like rocks. When you open up the ice cream, you get rocks inside it, right? No, it's bumpy like a rocky road. So they said, hey, why don't we call it Rocky Road? Because it's bumpy like a rocky road. The second thing is, so it uses a metaphor. It's like a rocky road because it's bumpy.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing they used was alliteration, a repetition of sound. Rocky Road. okay, like Coca-Cola and Best Buy and all these things, and TikTok. It's not a coincidence that they use alliteration, the repetition of sound. But the third thing they used was humor. In the Great Depression, people described the Great Depression as we're all on a rocky road. So their concept was we're all on a rocky road anyway. We might as well have rocky road ice cream. Sticks to the brain, wakes up the brain, and they're going, rocky road ice cream, huh? You know.
So this is fascinating. I mean, this can go in so many different directions. Like, so say somebody currently has a business and they have established slogans and a name. I mean, you would recommend making some changes, finding a group of words, a slogan like this. Any advice about how to work that in, or to make a change or a transition to
Absolutely.
what a business owner is currently using and isn't working very well?
Absolutely. And I can't tell you how many, there's tons of people, and many of them tell me not to share who they are because they don't want their competitors doing the same thing they're doing. Okay. Because I can't tell you how many people have become millionaires and multimillionaires using brain glue. Okay. Which is really exciting. But let me give you a few great brain glue tools that you could start with your own business. I want to give you an example of somebody who used one of them, by the way. The first thing you want to focus on is metaphor. Complete the phrase, it's just like, but be as crazy as possible, okay? My product is just brain glue is as powerful as a naked man. It grabs your attention as strongly as a naked man running through your backyard, okay? I don't know if that's good, but anyway. So let me give you an example of brain glue. Somebody, I don't think he got it from my book, but he understood the concept of this, okay? Of a metaphor. Sorry, it's just like. So a guy creates an electric razor, an electric shaver for man's private areas. Excuse me, I don't want to get too much into this, but just so you understand this. Sorry, let me drink just for a second here.
Take a drink.
There we go. Okay, so he creates an electric razor for man's private areas. He wanted to come up with a name that would be clear and obvious what the product does, but he didn't want to offend anyone. So what would you come up with as a name for that? So he's thinking about it, and he said, it's just like, what's it like? It's like a lawnmower. He decided to call the product the lawnmower, and sales exploded so much that he actually changed the name of his company to Manscaped. We can landscape a man with the lawnmower. I was in, a store, I think Bed Bath & Beyond or something like that with my wife. And there's a poster, and it's a white poster, and it says, the lawnmower has an arrow and it points to the shaver. So, and it has text underneath it. So of course I'm going to read the text as people are walking in the store and said, look at that. Hey, honey, look at that, and they're reading the text.
So if you try to describe the product, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you hook it to a lawnmower and trigger something that's there in people's subconscious, they'll grab onto it.
Exactly. And they remember it so much that it becomes viral, like a virus. Okay. That suddenly it spreads. You don't even have to spend money on advertising.
I'm seeing a big value of this. It's all about it is like the viral. It's a memory that gets embedded. It triggers at the right time. And
it sells a ton of your products. And I can't tell you how many times because I developed brain glue, but other people are just floored by, we change the name or we develop the name of a product and suddenly sales explode like gangbusters. Let me give you a quick example of this, okay? So there's a mom, a stay-at-home mom, and she wants to create a Facebook page. And so she has over 5 million fans. And you know how much she spent? 0, okay? She didn't spend anything. So she's thinking, I'm going to create a Facebook page. So why don't I create it I'm a mommy anyway. So mommy needs time to herself. Mommy needs a rest. I know what mommy needs. Mommy needs vodka. She created Mommy Needs Vodka, okay? So I have a friend who must be a fan of hers and shared something on Facebook. So I'm looking at it, it's pretty good. Oh yeah, that's pretty funny. It's by Mommy Needs Vodka? What the heck's that? Got to click on that. I clicked on it. So went to her page. I liked her content, and I definitely became a fan. Now, how many people out there have fabulous Facebook page and you don't have Facebook pages and you don't have 5 million fans? And this woman, she wasn't even selling stuff. Now she sells stuff because she has so many fans.
You talked earlier about the importance of humor. It sounds like maybe there was a connection there where mommy needs vodka, and everybody knows that, there's a humorous aspect to that, and that triggers.
Yeah, but it doesn't always have to have humor, but humor does sell. Okay.
It's
I mean, it's
one of
one of
the
those things.
areas.
Yeah, it's one of those things that if you can make people laugh, there's a better chance that you're going to get them to buy. But if you don't, that's fine. I mean, I did it with my fire extinguisher guys. I mean, actually made people laugh. Wasn't meant to, but it worked. But
Mhm.
it just but Famous Amos or Hula Hoop or Chips Ahoy. I mean, they don't all make people laugh, but they stick to the brain, and because it sticks to the brain. I mean, it's just fantastic. I mean,
Yeah,
Stephanie
I'm seeing
Germanotta.
the common point. We're getting right back to, the fundamentals is that you're you're creating this stickiness through whichever way you do it, and it's there, and then that fires off probably emotionally when it's time to make a buying decision, or like you're talking right there where you're surfing the web, and you see a interesting term like mom and vodka.
Yeah, exactly. Mommy loves vodka. But it's just, I mean, there are famous people that we have. Like we have Stephanie Germanotta. Most people don't know who she is until I tell you that she's Lady Gaga. Okay, her
Oh,
manager came up with the name. Even the Rolling Stones stole the name from a Rolling Stones song. I mean, but it sticks to the brain. And there's Rolling Stone magazine, and gee, is it a coincidence that they all came up with the same name?
right.
No, they realize that it grabs people's attention. And that's what you want. It's amazing why struggle? That's what people do. Why struggle? I mean, I go back to Pop-Tarts all the time. How would you like somebody to
Yeah.
steal your idea and make more money than you? I mean, they make
Well, I
they're
mean,
so,
just like doing this podcast, I keep it hands on. I look through the press releases and kind of decide where to go. And as I'm going through, brain glue popped up, and it's like it just stuck there. And then I cycled back. And go, where's that brain glue guy? That made a connection. I learned myself brain glue works. I mean, that immediately stuck with me as I was reviewing things. I mean, kind of like moving towards the end of the podcast. Are there any critical points you want to pull out here?
yes. The first thing you want to do is think of a metaphor, okay, and complete the phrase. My product or idea is just like, and be as crazy as possible. Have fun with it, okay? And the crazier the idea, think of the lawnmower. I mean, who would name a shaver the lawnmower? And yet the guy's made, I think he's over $200 million of sales now. We have big companies trying to buy him out, and he's going, no, you're not offering me enough money. So think of a metaphor. Start with that. My idea or product is just like, and have fun with that. Then the second thing is rhyme. Think of the words that relate to it, like Squatty Potty. Potty. Well, what rhymes with potty? Well, squatting, squatty. Okay. Think of rhyme words that rhyme with words that describe what your product is. And I think if you take those two, that's a good place to start. But definitely start with a metaphor, because I'm amazed how many metaphors. There was Morton Salt. Morton Salt dominates the salt industry. When it rains, it pours. That's their slogan. When it rains, it pours. And for 100 years, they were the first salt that poured smoothly. And so they came up with the phrase, when it rains, it pours. So for everybody out there,
So
take
I try to get started here, just getting people to think about this. So kind of start building by looking at a slogan, and then that's a good first step, and then you can work from there to get
yes,
more deeply
absolutely.
into these principles.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and the easiest place to start is with, a metaphor. My product is just like, and then have fun with it. Get your kids talking about it. I mean, just talk to anybody, old, young, it doesn't really matter. And just say, let's be as crazy as possible. What do you think my product is like? You know,
All right. So a key
have
word
fun.
also there is metaphor, and
Yes.
to start triggering this process. I mean, someone could have a PhD in this, and I'm trying to look. There's a lot here. I'm trying to think of how can someone apply this in their business as they're getting started? Start with metaphors. I mean, I don't know when you wrote this book, but I wish I'd read it 20 years ago. I
Okay.
mean, there's a lot of things I think I misnamed, and they crashed and burned. Well,
Well,
James, my favorite podcast question is, what's one thing a podcast listener should do tomorrow morning to reap the benefits of brain glue, and to build their own sales and business? And I think I know what your answer will be.
What could it be? Get the book. But also we have yesbrainglue.com has a video training program, and people love the thing. It's basically a $200 program, but I'm doing it for $47. I'm trying to make it so that people can really understand and learn brain glue. And I can't tell you how many people I have, from people who have never been in business before to pros, because I coach high-end pros also. They love it because the concept, or get the book, but the book is on Amazon and in bookstores. But you want to learn this because we're competing often against people that have a ton of money. This is the secret to not having to spend a fortune and yet making a fortune. That's one of the areas I focused on, is who's made a fortune, who was broke when they started, and how did they do this? And the concept of brain glue is so profound. Definitely at least start with this, is the metaphor that we're talking about, is come up with a way to complete the phrase. My product is just like, and have fun with it.
Well, bring that out. My product is just like, start brainstorming and working from there. Well, James, we've reached the end of our brain glue journey on today's Home Business Podcast. Do you have any last final points you'd like to share?
Yeah, I want to say, if you want to be richer, listen to Richer. Okay. The Home Business Magazine rocks. You guys have to read it, listen to it, look at the emails and everything, because you're going to get richer if you listen to Richard.
That's going to be my first thing after the podcast recording today, is go in and change my slogan. Well, James I. Bond. I didn't ever get a chance to make a joke on James Bond, so we'll just keep it James I. Bond. Thanks for joining us today on the Home Business Podcast.
Oh, Richard, thanks for having me. Thank you.
To learn more about James I. Bond, Brain Glue, and how you can order his video training program, please visit yesbrainglue.com or our podcast website for more information on guests. Thanks for joining us today on this episode of the Home Business Podcast. Share your feedback with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and at our website, homebusinessmag.com. Subscribe to the newsletter. Read the Home-Based Business Startup Guide. For more information, visit homebusinessmag.com or thehomebusinessexpo.com. I'm Richard Kevin Anderson saying anchors away. We'll talk with you soon. Until then, make it a great, sticky, brain glue, home-based day. Thank you for watching Home Business TV.